shoot. Sorry. Anyway, Guten Tag, chat. I'm getting ready to watch
Donald
pretentious
Trump's.
white people talk about their
It is
current
amazing.
experiences with reality. And then I guess we're gonna talk about how we told everyone it was pretty much coming. And I guess we're gonna kind of talk about where it's going. But anyway.
It is amazing how this guy is destroying himself. I've never seen anything like this. The number of things that he is doing to screw himself. I mean, he's scared to death of losing the midterms and getting impeached and removed from office, yet everything he's doing is making it more likely that that's going to happen. And he's doing so many things at once. This fucking...
See, I guess this is what I mean about pretentious. I don't know why this person, and again, I just cannot wait to be proven wrong personally. But how can it not be viewed that every single action that the administration has taken is to essentially steal the midterms? You know what I'm talking about? What we're getting ready to review is this person talking about how, we're in the Middle East for an indefinite amount of time. How is that not just another obvious step towards the monarchy? You know what I'm saying? And it's not. And who are we fucking kidding at this point? Hillary, whether we like it or not, Hillary won the popular vote in 2016. So it has never been the case where the people have truly ever been represented in terms of their interests. And I know that's always been true within my lifetime. In 2000, it was the case that Al Gore won the popular vote. Consistently and time again, we seem to be getting shoved towards, what is essentially Christian Zionism at the end of the day. Like, I know we just keep floating different abstract terms on, what we're all going towards, what's happening, blah, blah, blah. What's happening is that we're still very much tribal. And when I say we humans, and the ideas that we're currently behaving tribally around are ones where we think we have to blow ourselves up and everyone around us. That's what's going on. But yeah, more white people talk.
War that he lied about to get us into this war. I mean, he didn't lie to get us into this war. He just took us to war and then lied about why he did it. This is a disaster. Nobody wanted this.
Wrong. A lot of people want this.
Nobody supported it. And I don't, obviously some people do. And many in his cult are going along with it because it's a cult and they'll go along with anything he does. But generally speaking, this is not supported. People did not want to attack Iran. Nobody wanted to be involved in another forever war in the Middle East. And now he keeps pushing the timeline back in terms of how long this is going to last. Now we're at months. Now they're saying this is going to last, some in the administration floating September. This is going to...
So when's the elections? Again, November. We say September. Realistically, we're going at least till November, right, guys? We do understand that because this would allow Trump, even if his war is illegal. We don't care if things are illegal anymore, right? Do we understand how the rule of law has gone out the window quite some time ago at this point? But this is a clear game plan to take over the elections, or at least form a narrative around it. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is just what they're allowing the public to look at.
Going to last until September. This is insanity. And now, since Congress had a war powers vote on this, which failed, Republicans had enough votes in both the House and the Senate to basically rubber stamp Donald Trump's illegal war, which is why I fucking hate the War Powers Act. I mean, the War Powers Act says that there are only 3 circumstances under which a president can take the country to war. Because remember, the Constitution is very clear. Only Congress has the authority to declare war. Well, Congress passed this War Powers Act, and they say, okay, given what the Constitution says, and given the necessities sometimes of a president having to take action quickly, we're going to lay out the 3 scenarios under which a president is allowed to take military action. Use military force. One is if we did...
See, how do I tee this one up? The fact that we're even entertaining Powers Act talk is egregious. At the end of the day, what we're talking about is continuing to entertain the words of a convicted felon. What is he convicted of currently? Not even the most atrocious crimes of which he is guilty of. What's on the board is 34 felony counts of fraud. Um, we haven't even gotten to the whole, beef jerky thing, or the whole, burying them on the back nine with the rest of the other cunts. We haven't gotten any of that. And the reason why is because, we keep allowing the baby tyrant to push us wherever he wants us to push us. And I think people, how do I describe the next 20 minutes, just really in the next 2 to 3? People really need to start catching on to the fact that in order to have a society, which is this mutual agreement that we're going to share this space together, you know what I'm saying? We the people, we have to come together on a set of rules. And some of those rules with respect to a functioning society at the end of the day are going after outliers of society. Those being pedophiles. I mean, if we needed to define a worse moral monster, I'm really having a hard time of doing just that when I think of people like Trump or their supporters. It's hard for me as someone who likes to think about philosophy just in and out all the time to define a moral monster greater than Trump and friends. Because what we're essentially defining is a group of people who have demonstrated they're willing not like they are not shy about holding back against your daughters. I hope you guys understand that. And when that is the case, you need to understand what they're trying to do with the technologies they now have control over. You know what I'm saying? It's not just about, controlling this person's perceptions of reality. It is industrializing their behavior. Okay? And that's kind of what we're getting at. Like, these people think they have control over a technology that is going to let them industrialize that behavior. And this could not be more not the case. You know what I'm saying? They don't have control over jack shit. They don't have control over the Middle East. And now they've essentially kerplunged us into a holy war with the rest of the Middle East. And people don't understand what's at stake because we're just so, there's a host of different factors where just because your average constituent is at, but they are just so genuinely complacent. They are either drinking the juice like everyone else, or their ego is just as big as the people that they champion or don't give a fuck about. Because they think that this empire that they have built around themselves is still possible in the world of tomorrow. They don't see how basically really anything they've built in their entire lifetime is going to be coming to essentially a screeching halt in the next 5 to 10 years. And when I say we, I'm talking about us, people here in the United States. And again, there's so many people who are just much more intelligent than I am who have spoken to what's getting ready to happen. We have cut ourselves off from our oldest trade allies. We have made useless the food that we now produce. We are getting ready to hit an iceberg of supply chain issues ranging from food, water, and energy, and now a moral one. You know what I'm saying? We can't get people to get on board with the idea that we are demons. You know what I'm saying? And we are doing the devil's work as we fucking speak. And no one really has it within themselves to admit that, unfortunately. And who's going to do that? Everybody's going to keep dick riding their own egos until the train falls off the tracks, frankly. That's just how us Americans have been programmed, unfortunately. And fuck, the AI revolution for me couldn't come fast enough. I'm all for watching bacon sizzle at this point. You know what I'm saying? I think the only thing that, as well as just supporting the few loved ones that I still have, but my only skin in the game is to really just watch piggies fry at this point. And I really couldn't be more happy to do so. This country has done nothing but try to produce some of the most amoral beings humanity has ever fucking produced. And the moment we kind of get context on what we're doing as a society, um, we're going to collapse in a very explosive way. That has been predicted by not just the religious scholars, right, but by Freudian, Jungian psychologists, people I've loved to follow for a long time now. But there's a lot of people who think that this hubris, in order for us to come back and get over cognitive dissonance and come back to reality, that's going to be quite the explosive event. There is so few of us who have the ability to give up our egos in order to learn, to even admit they're wrong, for crying out loud, about anything. Um, and for us to kind of work through that, let alone work with each other for a society that has done more or less little to support us. Yeah, we're fucking stupid if we think we're gonna pull together and do grassroots community shit. Maybe some of our communities, some of the indentured ones throughout the centuries. But no, on the bulk, I do not see people of this ethnic class coming together and fighting against what is essentially a holy war getting ready to come back at us. Because, I talk a lot about supply chain issues, but the reason we talk about those issues is because of what happens when those become actual crisis points. You know what I'm saying? What happens when the food runs out? What happens when the water runs out? What happens when these new data structure, centers that are being constructed in Oklahoma essentially drain what's left of the Ugalala Reservoir, and there is no more drinking water for people to go around? You think they're going to pull together in grassroots communities and revolt against data centers? No, in fact, what they're going to do is they're literally going to start, it's going to be a chaotic civil war where everyone's going to be at each other's throats. And that's just the water problem. This isn't to say the literal terrorism that we are now provoking around the world. We've kidnapped Venezuela's dictator, or however we like to frame him. He's a bad guy, but was it ever our place, considering the problems we had, to go kidnap a dictator? I shouldn't have to explain that to anybody other than dodo birds at this point. Was it ever our place to, go pick fights in the Middle East without seeking accountability for people, quote unquote, buried on the back nine? Absolutely not. And if people really understood the numbers around healthcare at this point, and this is just healthcare, liberally speaking, it would take about 5 to 6 billion for everybody to have free healthcare. This thing we seem to all be complaining about as American citizens. We spend we've already spent that with the war currently going on. We've already spent that bombing schoolgirls in Iran. We've already spent that. You know what I'm saying? So we don't give a fuck about our citizens. We don't care about girls. You know what I'm saying? And what we're doing is we're teeing up our citizens who either can't see past what's going on, or who are still allowing them the culpable deniability of the system they're currently enslaved to. We don't see how they're all being shoved. Most of us on the boat don't see how of us are being shoved into moral monsters for the world to have to deal with. And that's going to be an easy thing to do. Like, there's what we've experienced in the last year and a half, again, a shortening of the supply line to where it's now coming to a screeching halt. What more demonstration do you need than the Strait of Hormuz, or whatever is going on there? It's not happening. There are multiple reports that other countries within the UAE have stopped the production of oil. And this is going to start hitting other countries in a real way, besides just increased oil prices. People who don't understand how oil works, well, they're getting ready to, because yeah, the prices on everything are going to go up, and that's just the oil. When America starts, needing to lean back on how do I produce wealth? Well, you need to understand that the only thing America has shown on the books, realistically, in this past year, has been a slight increase to the healthcare sector, which is to say nurses and doctors. Um, fuck, we haven't even gotten to the supply chain issues of things like, teachers that are crashing out who can clearly see what's coming. The scientists who have killed themselves for years because, or have either left the country because they have seen what's coming. Um, but together, hopefully sooner than later, in order for me to be wrong, we would have to come back to reality. That cognitive dissonance that this person needs to come, how can we, blah, 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 and we keep riding the roller coaster of attention of how can we do this? You know, what do I need to do at this point? There's an old George Carlin bit, as old as 30 years now, that kind of just talks about how we have this incestuous relationship with rockets in the Middle East. So, um, it really is just getting a grip of reality at this point. Most of what you've been taught as an American is a fucking lie. I don't know if this is. I haven't even read. Oh shit. Books on Marxism or socialism, but at this point, it couldn't be more obvious that the system or framework that we're all born within, especially within this country, is just a system designed and manufactured around control. Again, what real wealth does America produce at this point, other than this bubbling AI structure that has a time limit, unfortunately. Um, like I said, water runs out. So unless we're going solar or figuring out a way out of the gas crisis, we are basically going to start automatizing human suffering. You know what I'm saying? If that isn't already the case. So, yeah, it's gonna be dope. I don't think we have any science fiction that's kind of caught up with us at this point. I know maybe it's Soylent Green. I've had that one pointed out. But not even the Matrix is doing it justice. Like, we have accelerated past that to the point where it's like, okay, now we can just tell the people inside of the Matrix how bad it is, and they still just want to be inside of the Matrix, right? This is as if the people of Zion were essentially told of the world, and they just would want to immediately resubscribe to becoming human batteries. You know what I'm saying? Like, um, that's not at all how the plot was supposed to go. We were supposed to have people who were, at least wanted to be human, and now that it's clearly not the case. We just have we have people goose stepping and marching to the tune of, whatever people like Lindsey Graham are saying, fly with Israel, and you're just like, how do we have so many terrorists in the country now? It's like that's literally words of terrorism against our constitution, or treason against our constitution. And you're just like, how do we get to a point where we have so many people cheering that on? And my favorite analogy nowadays is Agent Smith. How do we get to the point where so many people can just be activated into an Agent Smith? Well, man, I mean, we've spent our entire lives essentially brainwashing ourselves into false understandings of reality, and we're more inclined to religiously believe, conspiracies or whatever it is our ego is trying to jump to in the moment, from one cave to another, as I like to say. Um, Rather than just give it all up. Like, if we simply sacrifice the hubris, what is essentially the Bible is trying to tell us at the end of the day, once we sacrifice the king, which is ourselves, it all makes sense. But oh god, instead we just keep stomping people down, you know? Instead we just keep stomping people down. Did you hear the story about the person who got cut in half and their friend put them back together? Yeah, I mean that's essentially what people are cheering on right now here in America or over in Israel or wow with Israel. It's like, yep, we're to the point where friends and family are quite literally goose stepping Nazis, you know. And I'm glad I at least had the fucking peace of mind, or at least had the presence of mind to call this shit out for what it was years in advance. Like I'm glad, these kinds of people called me paranoid for pointing out their behavior years in advance. It means the world to me that these enemies of their literal own humanity at this point can't see past themselves. And like I said, my only skin in the game left at this point is to watch these literal white donkeys eat shit and get fucked by dear leader. You know what I'm saying?